light tackle. Little spoons and stuff like this. On light line, small reel, small rod on the surf. A lot of fun. Method 2. I just hooked myself. Method 2. Bait fishing. Using hook and sinker. And method 3. Plugging. Alright, so I've got boxes for each kind of these, each kind of fishing that I was talking about. I've got my light tackle box with like little spoons and stuff like that in there. I love these little spoons. I've got my bait fishing box, which I've got all my sinkers, all my hooks, leader line, pre-tied rigs that I've tied. Yeah, lots of different stuff for bait fishing. And then I've got one of my many plugging boxes right here, full of different plugs, top water, metal lip divers, lots of different kinds of plugs in here. And I have them in all separate boxes because I consider them as different kinds of fishing. I don't usually bring all three with me to the beach because if I'm focusing on one kind of fishing, I like to focus on one kind of fishing. The first method I'm talking about today is like light tackle spoons. So I know Castmaster makes a bunch of these kinds of spoons, all different sizes. I usually get ½ ounce, ¼ ounce, 1 ounce. But that's if I'm targeting little dinner-sized fish from the first trough. I recommend anyone start with a ½ ounce to 1 ounce little spoon like this. Now, spoons like this catch all sorts of fish, I'm telling you guys, all sorts of fish. When I cast this out, I usually have no idea what I'm going to hook up with. And that's really cool to me, that you know, casting out the mystery of not knowing what you're going to catch. That's what really draws me to the sport of fishing in general. So I think that these are really, really versatile. They work all over. They work everywhere. I've caught fish on spoons everywhere I've been, and I really, really like them. And now the trick with using these little spoons like this is to make sure you have the correct gear. You're not going to be able to cast this little spoon out on something like this or something big like this. These are just too big. You won't be able to get your line out far enough. What I recommend you guys use for these spoons, these light tackle, is a saltwater approved lighter reel. And I just ordered myself a reel that would be perfect for this. Casting. This is the Kodiak. This handle is what I really like about it. Now let me show you why. Alright, look at that. Perfect. Not too big, not too small. This will be a versatile reel for me. I will be able to use this on the pier. I'll be able to use this on the surf. I'll be able to use this on the jetty. Brackish water, freshwater, it's saltwater approved. Good size. Now, the part I like about the handle is the knob right here. When you order the 5,000 size, instead of getting like the standard, instead of getting that little standard knobby knob like this, you get a nice handful with this. Look at that. And this allows for a nice grip on your reel, so you don't feel like your fingers are going to slip out if you happen to catch a big fish. It's perfect. And it's not so big that you won't be able to cast something like this out. So long as you have the right diameter braid, you will be fine. For this kind of fishing, I recommend you spool this up with like probably 10-pound braid. Braid is a really sensitive line. It has no stretch, so you're able to feel every little touch. And I think that's important when you have light tackle like this, so you can really be able to set the hook on them good. Now I'm going to show you a really quick trick with spooling up braid. It's going to save you a little bit of money, and I think a lot of people will benefit from this tip. Here it is. You ready? You don't need to spool this whole spool up with braid. If you don't have braid on here, it's going to start slipping. And maybe some of you have had this problem before, where like the drag is completely locked, but you pull it and it's still spinning. Why is that? Because braid can't grip onto this. What you need to do is put monofilament backing on it. Think about how big your spool is. Are you really going to be casting casting 300 yards of braid. I don't think you can cast 300 yards of braid. And if you can, props to you, man. But I can't cast 300 pounds of braid. So what I usually do is I put mono backing on here and then probably 150 yards of braid. This way you save a bunch of braid. This way you save a bunch of braid and your line won't slip. So I'm going to show you real quick. I'll fill the spool about a quarter of the way. And I've got 20-pound mono backing right now. And the casting braid has been working for me pretty well, and they're like $10 cheaper than like the standard braid that I usually get. Power Pro, Spider Wire, it's usually $10 more expensive. Casting does the same job, and they give you more of it. So the line that I've been using is this Casking braided line, made in the USA, Spectrafiber, and it comes on this awesome biodegradable spool, which I think is a really good effort in helping with water conservation, ocean conservation, because plastic is really ruining our oceans. Aaron and I have been talking to you guys about this for a while, how we should all be picking up our trash, we should be leaving our spots cleaner than when we first arrived, and I think this fits in so perfectly because at least they're putting effort into minimizing waste. You use the spool one time and then you throw it away, and then that plastic lives on Earth for a long time. That doesn't make sense to me. Why create that? Plastic is bad for the world. Thank you, Casting, for making something like this. I'm using a uni-to-uni knot to attach the braid to my mono. If anyone wants a tutorial, if anybody's interested in a tutorial on how to tie a uni-to-uni knot, let me know in the comments below. I'll make one. Second, I hear one person tell me they need help with that. And then I fill the rest up with braid. Anybody interested in the Casking braid with a biodegradable spool or the Kodiak 5000? We've got links in the description below. All right, and it's ready to go. This is going to be awesome. Our next method, method number 2, bait fishing. There are so many different rigs that you can tie, all with the basic idea. This rig is one of my favorite rigs. You guys may have seen us talk about this rig before. It's the same rig in the Senko Skipper Surf Fishing Kit. Now we provide you all the things to tie and how to tie this rig in our Senko Skipper Kit. We've got a PDF if you want to read it. All in the link in the description below. But this rig is a very versatile rig. You don't have to have one hook. You can have 2 hooks. You can have 3 hooks if you wanted to have 3 hooks. With this, it keeps the bait off the ground. Whereas a fish finder rig, the hook is on the ground. It's on the ocean floor. Since it's off the bottom, I get less catfish, I get less skate, I get less, like the bottom feeding fish. Especially I get a lot of hookups on the top hook, far from the bottom. Anyways, I like to rig this up. Lately, I've been liking to rig this up with the Super Salty Tentacles. This is the mixed bag that we have. I'm going to show you this real quick. The mixed bags come with squid chunks made from the body and squid tentacles made from the tentacles of the squid. And it comes with a bunch of salt to keep it preserved. So it comes with a bunch of this salt. But the salt's a good thing. It helps keep it preserved, and it also is infused with a lot of squid scent. All that squid juice is in the salt, and it keeps it smelling like fresh squid. Love it. So here are the body parts. Here are the tentacles. Everyone gets tentacles in the mixed bag. Body, 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 body. All right, so for this, I want to show you guys something. I want you guys to try this yourself. Get the tentacles, cut off a bit, right? And then you're going to feed it onto your hook like a worm, like this. And I'm using circle hooks because those are safer fish. All right, look at that. Hook it up like this. Get the tentacles, put it on here. Now for bigger hooks, either use a big tentacle or use a chunk bait like this. And with these bodies, you've got a lot of meat on them. And they stay on there forever. There you go. Look at that. Perfect in combination with like fresh cut bunker or like bloodworms. This is a nice chunk bait to add on or by itself. So now when this is sitting, when this is in the water, the surf, okay, waves and current will be pushing it back and forth and swishing. Doesn't that look like a fish to you? It smells great, moves very naturally. Other baits I would use on this. Bloodworms, cut bunker, chunk bait, any kind of dead bait, dead fish, cut dead fish. Lots of stuff works on these hooks right here. But yeah, for these hooks, you can put whatever kind of chunk bait you want on them. You cast it out, you sit there, you wait for the tug. I really like this kind of fishing, especially if I'm going with family or friends, and I don't want to pay full attention to fishing. I can have this out, have a bell up, have my drag set, so I can really just chill, lay back, and I don't have to be super focused. Which brings me to my next method, plugging. This is like a candy store for me. Like, this all looks like candy to me. I freaking love them. One, they're really beautiful. They're really fun. They're really beautiful, aren't they? This one was actually made by a subscriber, Linnell. Thank you, man. I still have not gotten a chance to use it. We're preparing for our trip to Cape Cod soon, and I think that these will work really well, Linnell. Thank you very much. These are metal lip divers. Metal lip divers stay subsurface. They're not on the top, but they're just below, and they'll dive like this. This works really well for lots of different kinds of fish, especially big predator fish, rockfish, striped bass. Now, the thing is, these are made of wood, and I don't want to fish for this for bluefish because it'll ruin my paint. Just a personal preference. I would rather not use such a beautiful lure on a toothy fish like that. For toothy fish, I use plastic stuff like this. Or I don't know if it's plastic, whatever material this is, but it can get beaten up, and I don't care. This is a Tsunami, one of the Tsunami talking poppers. Not too expensive, really fun to use. The thing with top water and plugs like this is these are probably 2-3 ounces. You know, like they're not light things. You would not want to use light tackle to be throwing something like this. What I recommend for top water plugs like this, like big ones like this on the surf, is a long rod, 10 to 11 feet, 10, 11 foot rod will be good, with a big reel, with heavier braid. So I'm thinking like 30, 40-pound braid. 20-pound braid will work, but I'm afraid of slicing my finger on that braid. And the casting braid will work perfectly for this. I highly recommend you use braid when you're casting plugs like this because you want it to go really far. That's one of the reasons why it's so big and heavy. You want it to go really far and cover a lot of water. When you're working these baits on the top, you want to cover as much of that water column as possible. And this is making a bunch of noise at the surface of the water, splashing around, and boom! All of a sudden something will come out of the water and eat it. And it's so exciting to see it, because it's boom, and then it's a train on you. And it's a train on the end of your ride. It's awesome. You're going to see more of that in the future, because we're going to Cape Cod soon. So when you fish something like this, there's a lot of different ways to fish it. This will fish way different than this. Look at how it's shaped. This will float and pop water from the mouth. This one more so glides through the water. So, but for something like this, popper, what you're going to want to do is cast it way out there and start popping, bringing it back. Okay? There's many different ways, many different speeds you can bring it back. That's something that you need to work on yourself. It depends on what the fish want. Sometimes you cast it out, wait, pop, 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 wait, pop, pop, pop. Sometimes they want fast, pop, 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 pop. You know, there's different retrieval ways, and you got to experiment with different ways. So final tip for these: get yourself the correct rod. Okay, 10, 11 foot rod with the right reel and the right braid. Throw these these when you see fish busting on the surface, you see birds diving like crazy. Throw these when you see fish coming out of the water, you see fish chasing other little bait fish. Throw one of these. It'll really attract it with all that sound, with all that splashing. It'll come up and smack it hard. Have fun. Thank you everyone for listening to me ramble on about surf fishing. I really hope that I can help anyone out there who needs help, because I remember a time where I didn't know anything.
Okay, we are making salted minnows, salted shiners. And what you gotta do to make these is you need, I use a cooler, you could use anything that holds a couple gallons of water. A few dozen minnows, there are shiners and some suckers in here. And what this is a brine solution. It is about a gallon of water and about 3/4 a cup of pickling and canning salt. This stuff right here. You put the minnows in here. They're live when you do it, and add the salt, mix it up a little bit, and let them sit for an hour or more. And it kills the minnows, it purges them a little bit. And now what we're going to do is we are going to dry them off and let them dry off a little bit before we put them in salt to actually preserve them. Dry the minnows off. I'm going to put them on paper towels that are sitting on pieces of cardboard, and what that does is it helps suck up the moisture, and it makes less of a mess everywhere. There's some pretty good size, at least for up here, pretty good size shiners. Alright, now I got these shiners out here, and they are going to get patted dry. They don't need to be perfectly dry, but you want to kind of get as much excess moisture off as you can before you put them in the salt. Next, I'm going to take a Rubbermaid container, a piece of Tupperware. You could use anything. You can use a pan or a tub or anything at all. And I'm going to put a bunch of the canning salt in the bottom of it. And I'm going to lay the minnows in the salt. Now, this, and a lot of moisture is going to be coming out of them. I'm just going to put 1 layer of minnows in here, and I'll put 2 layers in the next pan. Cover them up again. Just going to gently wipe off this cardboard here, because we're going to reuse this later. Okay, here are your minnows, the salt and their curing, and now they're going to be put not in a freezing temperature but in a cold area, like probably 35-40 degrees for 3 to 5 hours, depending on how big the minnows are and how much moisture needs to come out of them. You don't want to get them really desiccated, because then they don't look right and they won't be great baits. You just kind of want to find the happy medium between drying them out too much and having them be no different than if you just froze minnows and they just fall apart after you have them on your hook for a minute. So out to the porch they go. Okay, so now our minnows have been sitting for about 4 or 5 hours, and they start to firm up. It's kind of hard to tell when they're ready, but it doesn't matter that much. They firm up, they don't really feel like live minnows anymore. And what we're going to do is we're going to rinse them in the brine solution that we made earlier to purge the minnows. We're going to rinse them and then let them dry on the cardboard and paper towels. This is when you find out if you have any cuts on your fingers. You'll feel it in the salt water. Holy cow. Alright, we've got these minnows laid out, and we will let them dry. Alright, here is the finished product. The minnows dried for a couple hours, and then I put them in Ziploc bags and put a piece of paper towel in there to absorb any excess moisture, and then we freeze them. And then they're ready to go for winter or summer. They're a great trout bait. The advantage of doing this over just freezing minnows is that when you preserve them like this, they don't fall apart. If anyone's ever just frozen minnows and then tried to use them, they, I think they're just rotting basically, and they jig right off your jig. You know, they kind of turn to mush. These, you can freeze them and thaw them and freeze them and thaw them and freeze them and thaw them, and they just stay fresh looking, shiny. They reflect the light well underwater, and they last forever, and they stay on your hook, which is really, really nice. So that's the advantage of salted minnows over just freezing minnows.